I came back on deck barefoot, soaked and trembling, but alive. The sea hadn't taken me. Not this time. In my hand were 3 wet passports, the edges curling from the salt water. My son's, his wife's, and my granddaughter's. I held them like evidence, like proof that I still mattered, if only to immigration control. It was after midnight, and the deck was quiet except for the gentle churn of the ship's wake. I didn't head toward the main elevators. I needed the long walk, needed to feel the weight of each step, hear the wet slap of my feet against the wood, remember that I was still here, still breathing, still deciding. When I reached my cabin, I didn't turn on the light. I sat on the edge of the bed, the hem of my nightgown dripping onto the carpet, and waited for my breathing to slow. The smell of salt clung to my skin. I placed the passports on the dresser like they were trophies, or perhaps like final warnings. 2 days ago, they filled my suitcase with rocks, but let me start properly, with the invitation. It came through a phone call from my son, Trevor. He rarely calls. Usually it's a forwarded email or a short text that reads more like a business reminder than a message from a child to his mother. But that day, he called. "Hey, Mom," he said, tone too cheerful. "We're doing something special for Izzy's graduation. A cruise, all of us. 7 days, Mediterranean. You should come." I should come. That was the phrase that stuck with me. Not "we want you there," not "we'd love to have you," just "you should come," like it was something I'd been meaning to do and simply forgot. Still, I said yes. Of course I did. What else was I going to say? "No, thank you. I'd rather stay home and water the geraniums." I hung up and sat at the kitchen table staring at my chipped mug of tea. The invitation felt less like a bridge and more like a test, and I wasn't sure I wanted to pass it. A cruise. I'd never been on one before. My late husband, Sam, hated the idea of being stuck on a floating hotel. He used to say, if I wanted overpriced food and screaming children, I'd go to a mall. But Sam had been gone for 9 years now, and maybe I was allowed new experiences. I pulled out my calendar. 7 days. Departing from Barcelona. "All expenses paid," Trevor had said. "Don't worry about a thing, Mom. It's all on us." It sounded too generous. That's when the first crack formed. My son is many things, but generous isn't one of them. Not unless there's a benefit involved. But I ignored the instinct. Instead, I went shopping. I bought a modest navy sundress and a soft straw hat. I even had my hair trimmed, though I kept it its natural silver. No need to pretend. I'm 78. I've earned my age. Packing was easy. I've never been the type to carry much. A few books, a pair of sandals, sensible clothes. The suitcase was small, blue, with one broken wheel. Sam had bought it for a trip we never took. At the airport, they didn't greet me. Not even a wave across the crowd. I found them at the gate, already checked in, sipping cold brew and scrolling their phones. "I thought you'd meet me at check-in," I said, setting down my bag. "Oh, sorry," Claire said without looking up. "We figured you'd be fine." Izzy had earbuds in. She didn't even glance up. I told myself not to take it personally. On board, things didn't improve. Trevor and Claire had booked adjoining suites for themselves and Izzy. Mine was a deck below, smaller, no balcony. I didn't complain. The first night at dinner, Claire ordered wine for everyone but me. "She doesn't drink," she told the waiter. "Right, Norma?" I hadn't touched a drop in years, but that didn't mean I wanted to be excluded. "It's fine," I said softly. "Water's good." Claire smiled as if I'd proven her point. Izzy barely looked up from her phone. By the third day, I was invisible. They went on excursions and left without telling me. I wandered the ship alone, reading on quiet decks, watching couples dance at sunset, eating at odd hours so I wouldn't sit at an empty table. That morning, I found my suitcase missing. I called Trevor. "Probably in the wrong storage bin," he said, not concerned. "Ask reception." Reception hadn't seen it. It wasn't in the cabin. It wasn't anywhere. That night I found it, floating near the edge of the ship's wake. A flash of blue in the water. It bobbed once, then dipped, weighed down by something heavy. My heart froze. I remembered the way Claire had said earlier that day, "It's nice when things end naturally." I hadn't understood it then. I do now. They filled my suitcase with rocks, and now I was sitting here, back in my cabin, dripping seawater, holding their passports in my hand. Because I didn't drown. And tomorrow, I would decide what to do. I never liked flying, not because I was afraid of it, though I suppose any sane person should be, but because of the way people behave at airports. Everyone becomes impatient, entitled, as if getting on a plane first somehow makes them superior. I saw it in the way Claire waved me off when I offered to carry my own boarding pass. "Don't worry, I've got it," she said, as if I were a child or a pet she had to shepherd through security. We hadn't traveled together since Izzy was little. Back then, I was the one carrying bags and snacks and coloring books. Now, I was baggage myself, an extra body to be arranged around their plans. Claire insisted on sitting between Trevor and Izzy on the plane. I was across the aisle, by the window, where no one had to talk to me. That suited me fine. I watched the clouds. In Barcelona, we took a taxi to the port. Trevor booked it in advance. When the driver asked where we were headed, Trevor responded without hesitation. "La Estrella Cruise Terminal." Not a glance in my direction. Not a "Mom, you doing okay back there?" The city rolled past the window. Old stone buildings, hanging laundry, children playing soccer in alleyways. I leaned my forehead against the glass and took it all in. The cruise ship was massive. It looked more like a building than a boat. 12 decks, pools, restaurants, marble floors. A city at sea. I hesitated before walking the gangway, feeling the soft sway of the ship beneath my feet. Trevor had already vanished through security. Claire and Izzy trailed behind him, heads down in their phones. I carried my own suitcase, wheeled it slowly behind me, the blue one Sam never got to use. When I reached the reception desk, the woman smiled politely. "Mrs. Harper, welcome aboard. Your cabin is 8627, Deck 8, portside." "Oh," I said, glancing at the others. "I thought we'd be together." Claire raised an eyebrow. "That's where the accessible cabins are, right? It'll be easier for you there, fewer stairs." I don't use a cane, I don't have mobility issues, but apparently I'd already been categorized. The cabin was fine, small, clean, impersonal. No windows, no balcony. Just a narrow bed, a dresser, and a TV I wouldn't turn on. I unpacked in silence. My dresses hung neatly. My books, 3 of them, went on the nightstand. I placed Sam's old leather wallet in the drawer, though there was no money in it. Just a photo of him in the army, and one of Izzy as a baby, drooling on his chest. At dinner that night, I wore the navy sundress and a modest brooch. I'd even put on lipstick. Not too bright, just a touch of rose. They were already seated when I arrived. The table was set for 4. I took the empty seat and smiled. Izzy didn't look up from her phone. Claire looked at me, then at Trevor. You didn't tell her? Tell me what? I asked, folding my napkin. There's a chef's tasting dinner tomorrow, she said. Just the three of us. It's part of Izzy's graduation celebration. They only had 3 spots left. Oh, I said, the smile frozen on my lips. But we'll all do the excursion on Tuesday together, Trevor added. The olive farm tour. I nodded. That sounds nice. It never happened. The tour. They changed plans the next morning and forgot to tell me. I wandered the ship for hours, drank tea in the cafe, watched the pool fill with young families and loud music. At some point, a young boy offered me a seashell. His mother looked embarrassed, but I thanked him. I kept the shell. Still have it. That night in my cabin, I found a note slipped under the door. It was printed on cruise ship stationery. Please confirm dietary restrictions in advance. Your party has notified us of a salt-free preference. I hadn't. I like salt just fine. The next morning at breakfast, my eggs came bland, my toast unbuttered. Claire smiled across the table. We're just watching out for your health. Health. They said it often, always with a smile, always with something taken away. That evening, as I walked alone along Deck 9, I saw my reflection in the glass. Thin, upright, quiet, not fragile, not yet. I heard Claire's voice before I saw her, hushed, tense, speaking into her phone by the railing. She doesn't even notice, she was saying. It'll be clean, quiet. Just let it happen naturally. I stopped walking. She turned, caught sight of me, and pasted on a smile. Oh, hey, I didn't see you. Lovely night, I said. She nodded. You should turn in early. Tomorrow's a long day. I nodded too and walked past her. But I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the blue suitcase in the corner. And I wondered, not if they wanted me gone, but how far they'd go to make it happen. 2 weeks before the cruise, I stood in front of the dressing room mirror at Trudy's boutique and stared at a woman I barely recognized. The lighting was unflattering, too yellow, too honest, and the dress I held against my body looked more hopeful than appropriate. But I bought it anyway. Navy blue, modest neckline, thin belt. It reminded me of something I might have worn 30 years ago, before grief thickened in my joints, before my name started getting left off guest lists. Trudy herself, who'd known me since Izzy was a toddler, adjusted the hem with practiced hands. You going somewhere special, Norma? I nodded. Family cruise. Her eyebrows lifted just a little. How nice. All of you together? All of us, I said, trying to make it sound simple. When I got home, I laid the dress gently over the arm of the couch and made a list. I've always loved lists. They make things feel manageable. I wrote down everything I'd need: sunscreen, books, walking shoes, my daily vitamins. Then, just below toothbrush, I added something I hadn't intended to. Talk to Trevor about the will. I crossed it out quickly. Then rewrote it on the next page. There are things one should address before international travel. Not because I expected something to go wrong, but because that's what responsible people do. Still, the fact that it even occurred to me told me something. I called my bank the next day to confirm my balance. I keep things modest. The house Sam and I paid off long ago. No debts, some savings. Nothing extravagant, but more than enough to attract interest. Especially the kind that smiles across a dinner table and says, "You really should start thinking ahead, Mom." Claire had said it 3 months ago on one of her rare Sunday visits. Her tone had been sweet, her expression soft. It's just, you never know, and probate is such a mess. I'd nodded politely and changed the subject. But I hadn't forgotten. I didn't resent my family for needing things. Life is expensive. I know that. I've paid for braces, camp fees, repairs on Trevor's roof when the insurance wouldn't cover it. I've paid for Izzy's music lessons, even though she quit after 3 sessions. I've done what mothers do, quietly, without strings. But lately, I'd started to wonder if all that giving had blurred the lines. I spent the next day cleaning out the attic. Not out of necessity, I wasn't dying after all, but because something in me felt unsettled. Like the cruise would be a threshold, and I needed to put my house in order before I crossed it. I found a shoebox labeled Sam in faded marker. Inside were old receipts, a letter he wrote me on our 10th anniversary, and the watch he wore every day of our marriage. It had stopped ticking years ago, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it out. I placed it in my suitcase, nestled between 2 blouses. Later that evening, I called my friend May. "Norma, a cruise," she said, delighted. "You'll have a ball, all those desserts, and maybe a little sun on your shoulders." I smiled. May always made things sound better than they were. "I'm not sure I'll fit in," I admitted. "You're the mother," she said firmly. "You don't have to fit. You are the fit." I laughed at that. Tell that to my daughter-in-law. "Claire's never liked anyone who doesn't agree with her," May said. "I remember how she looked at the fruitcake you brought that first Christmas, like it was a threat to her souffle. She's very polished." "She's very cold," May corrected. "Don't let her freeze you out." I thanked her and promised to send a postcard. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with my checkbook. I didn't write anything, just opened it, stared at the blank lines. It felt symbolic, like I was choosing not to offer anything more. Not until I saw what this cruise really was. Was it a gesture of inclusion, or something else entirely? I packed the next day. I packed light. I've always traveled light. 2 dresses, 1 pair of walking shoes, 1 sun hat. A silk scarf I hadn't worn since Sam's retirement party, and Sam's watch wrapped in a sock. I left the jewelry box behind. No need to bring anything they could eye or envy. Not that they would. Claire wore diamonds. Izzy liked minimalist gold. My wedding ring, now worn on a chain around my neck, had no sparkle, just weight. When the day of departure came, I checked the stove twice, left a key with the neighbor, and took one last walk around the house. I stopped in front of the photo wall in the hallway. Trevor's graduation, Izzy's first birthday, Sam holding me from behind at Lake Monroe. I touched each frame once, then picked up my suitcase, the blue one, the one that would soon sink. But I didn't know that yet. We met at the cruise terminal in Barcelona. At least I did. They were already inside when I arrived. I'd asked Trevor what time they planned to get there. He said, "Oh, around noon, give or take." I got there at 11:45, hoping to be early enough that we could check in together. Bored as a family, maybe even take a photo. Instead, I stood outside for 20 minutes in the sun, pulling my suitcase over uneven pavement, scanning the crowd. The terminal was chaos. Children tugging on suitcases, honeymooners posing for selfies, couples bickering over boarding passes. At 12:10, I gave up and went in. I found them in the check-in line, laughing at something on Izzy's phone. Claire was wearing crisp white linen and enormous sunglasses. Trevor had on a shirt I'd never seen before. Expensive-looking, navy, probably tailored. Izzy wore ripped jeans and a tank top that said, "Nope." No one saw me at first. "Hello," I said, stepping up beside them. Claire turned slowly. "Oh, there you are." Trevor gave me a tight smile. "Thought you'd meet us at the gate." I was waiting outside. Oh, Claire said. We didn't think you'd get here that early. Izzy didn't look up. I rolled my suitcase behind them as we moved through the line. At the counter, Claire handled all the passports. When the attendant asked for mine, she turned to me. You have it, right? I did. I handed it over. The woman behind the desk smiled. Welcome aboard, Mrs. Harper. Your cabin is on deck 8. Inside, midship. Claire and Trevor exchanged a glance. You're not next to us? Trevor asked. No, the attendant said. You've got the adjoining suites on deck 10. I turned to Trevor. I thought we'd be near each other. He shrugged. Must have been a mix-up. Claire was already moving on. It's probably for the best, she said over her shoulder. The stairs can be a lot. I use elevators, I replied, but no one was listening. The ship loomed outside the window. Massive, gleaming, surreal. It looked like something out of a movie, a floating skyscraper. We boarded together, technically, but once inside, they disappeared fast. I stood at the ship's entrance as crew members welcomed guests with music and flutes of orange juice. I didn't see my family again until dinner. My cabin was clean, small. It smelled faintly of bleach and fabric softener. The bed was made with military precision. On the desk sat a welcome packet, daily schedule, ship map, list of amenities. I found my muster station, then hung up my clothes. One drawer for tops, one for underthings, one for the important things. My journal, my documents, Sam's watch. I kept the suitcase under the bed. I didn't lock it. It didn't occur to me to. That first afternoon, I wandered the decks. The pool was already loud with music and laughter. Children screamed and cannonballed into the water. Adults sipped cocktails and posed for photos. No one noticed me. I stopped at the library, took out a book I'd already read, sat in a lounge chair on the quiet side of Deck 5, and watched the dock shrink behind us as we left the harbor. It felt strange to leave land. Stranger still to feel so utterly alone with family on board. At 6:30, I made my way to the restaurant. Our reservation was for 7. I wore the navy dress and the pearl earrings Sam gave me on our 25th anniversary. I arrived first. The hostess led me to a table for 4 near the windows. The other 3 chairs stayed empty for 20 minutes. When they arrived, Claire looked surprised to see me. Oh, you're already here. I figured I should be on time. Good for you, she said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Trevor took the seat next to Izzy. Claire sat across from them, leaving me the last spot, diagonally across from my granddaughter, who kept her headphones in and looked at the menu like it was a text message. Izzy, Claire said, take those out. Izzy sighed audibly, but complied. The waiter came. Claire ordered a bottle of white wine and 3 glasses. When the waiter asked if I'd like anything, she jumped in. She doesn't drink. I'll have a glass, I said quietly. Claire blinked. Are you sure? With your medication? I'm not on any medication, I said. Trevor looked away. Dinner was slow, tense. They talked mostly about Izzy's university options. Yale. Stanford, possibly NYU, but the dorms are atrocious. No one asked what I thought, or how I was. I ate my salmon in silence. It was dry. I didn't complain. At the end of the meal, Claire handed the waiter a cruise card. It's all on us, she said. Part of the package. I reached for my own card just in case, but she waved me off. You're our guest. I almost laughed. Guest? Not family. Guest. We walked back toward the elevators. They got in together. I waited for the next one. Back in my cabin, I undressed slowly, placed my shoes by the door, hung the dress neatly, I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I didn't look like a threat. I looked like a woman who would be missed only out of obligation. And perhaps not even that. The first full day at sea began with silence. I woke up before the ship's announcements, before the hallway sounds of carts and footsteps, before the banging of cabin doors. My body still ran on land time. I dressed quietly. Light slacks, a linen blouse, and the small gold watch Sam once fixed for me with trembling fingers near the end. It no longer kept perfect time, but I wore it anyway. I walked up to the deck just as the sun crested over the water. The air was cool, salty. Empty deck chairs lined the railings, each facing the endless blue. For a moment, I felt like the only person on the ship. I liked it better that way. Breakfast was buffet style. I took a tray, found a table near the window, and served myself oatmeal, fruit, one small pastry. I was almost finished when Claire appeared, holding a smoothie and her phone. "Oh, you're here," she said. "We had breakfast in the suite." I nodded. She sat for a moment, but didn't eat, just scrolled. "Trevor's checking the schedule," she said. "We might go to that wine tasting class later." "Sounds nice." She glanced at me. "It's probably not your thing." "Maybe not," I replied, though I hadn't been asked. Izzy wandered in next, wearing pajama shorts and a sweatshirt. She saw me, hesitated, then walked past to grab her own food. No, good morning, not even a wave. Claire stood. "We'll catch you later. We're heading to the spa." She didn't wait for a reply. By 10 o'clock, I was alone again. I spent the morning on deck 7, where fewer people lingered. I read for a while, walked a little, watched couples play shuffleboard. No one spoke to me. At lunch, I sat in the atrium cafe. They passed by, Claire in a sundress, Trevor in shorts and sunglasses, Izzy trailing behind. But they didn't see me, or didn't want to. Later, when I knocked on their suite door, there was no answer. I left a note. "Just wanted to say hello. Hope you're enjoying the day. Mom." No one replied. I sat on a bench by the observation deck until my back ached. A young boy rode his scooter too close and clipped my foot. His mother apologized quickly, not stopping. I waved it off. It didn't hurt. Not really. At dinner, I waited 20 minutes again. When they arrived, Claire said, "Oh, we ate earlier at the sushi bar. Izzy was craving something light." "But this is our table." Trevor shrugged. "We figured you'd already eaten." I hadn't. But I ordered soup and tea. Ate alone while they chatted about the show they planned to see that evening. "You'd probably find it loud," Claire said. "I enjoy music." Trevor looked mildly surprised. "Really? I don't remember you ever." "You don't remember much lately," I said gently. Claire's lips tightened. After dinner, they left together. I walked back to my cabin through the long hall of closed doors. Each identical. Mine the only one that felt like it wasn't being visited. Back inside, I sat on the edge of the bed, removed my watch, my earrings, folded my clothes neatly. The air conditioning hummed softly. The sea rocked gently beneath the floor. Invisible, I thought. That's what I was. Not unwanted, not hated, just unneeded. And I wasn't sure which was worse. The second day began with a knock on my cabin door. Not a knock of concern or invitation, just the kind of perfunctory rap that signals someone on a schedule. I opened the door to find Claire, already dressed in resort whites and large sunglasses, holding a printed itinerary. "There's a brunch at the captain's table," she said. "Formal, but not too formal. Try not to wear anything with prints." I blinked. Why? They photographed terribly. Before I could answer, she turned and walked away. I closed the door and looked at the 2 dresses I'd packed. One was navy, the one I'd worn the night before. The other was pale lilac with a soft floral pattern. I wore the lilac. I arrived at the event 5 minutes early. The dining room had been transformed. White linens, crystal glassware, tall flower arrangements. A violinist played near the windows. Claire looked me up and down as I approached. "Oh," she said. "That's springy." I smiled. "Thank you." Trevor was adjusting his cufflinks. He didn't comment on my appearance. Izzy wasn't there yet. "Do I sit here?" I asked, gesturing toward the seat beside Trevor. Claire shook her head. "You're at the second table. It's mostly extended guests and press." "I thought we were all invited together." Claire gave a small, tight smile. "It's just logistics, Norma. You understand." I understood. I sat with strangers. Nice enough people, but none of them spoke much to me. One woman asked how I knew the Harpers. I said, "I'm his mother," nodding toward Trevor. She blinked. "Oh, I thought you were a friend of the cruise line." I didn't correct her. The captain made a speech. Toasts were raised. Photos taken. From where I sat, I could barely see my family, but I caught glimpses. Claire laughing with someone in pearls, Trevor holding a flute of champagne, Izzy scrolling her phone. No one looked my way. Afterward, I found them in the atrium. "Lovely brunch," I said. Claire nodded. "They do these things well." "You looked beautiful in that white dress," I added sincerely. She paused. "It's Carolina Herrera." I didn't know what to say to that. Later, by the pool, I tried to join them. They'd taken a shaded cabana near the upper deck. I approached, smiling. Izzy sighed. Claire didn't look up from her book. Trevor said, "You okay, Mom?" "I'm fine." "You're squinting." "It's sunny." Claire glanced at me. "Do you not have sunglasses?" "I brought a pair, just not out right now." Claire leaned toward her bag. "I have an extra pair of mine. They're designer, but maybe they'll suit you." I reached out to take them, but she paused. "Actually, never mind. They probably won't fit your face shape." Izzy snorted softly. Trevor said nothing. I nodded. "That's all right." I walked to the railing and stood alone for a while, watching the sea, pretending it was my choice to be elsewhere. That evening, I got a call to my cabin from guest services. "Mrs. Harper, we've had a report from your suite. Something about misplaced belongings?" "I don't believe so," I said. "Your family mentioned you may have lost your medication?" "I'm not on any medication." A pause. "All right. Thank you, ma'am." After dinner, which I again ate alone, I returned to my room to find my suitcase open. Nothing missing, nothing damaged, just open. Like an invitation or a warning. I sat on the bed and looked at it for a long time. That night, I wrote in my journal, "They don't want me here. Not just physically, emotionally, socially. They want me quiet, absent, decorated like furniture, soft, unobtrusive, and gone when the season changes." And then I added one more line. "I may not belong to them anymore, but I still belong to myself." The third day started differently, not with silence or cold politeness, but with coffee. Trevor knocked on my door at 9:15, holding 2 cups in those paper carriers. He hadn't brought me coffee in years. Not since he was a teenager and trying to apologize for breaking a vase. He swore he didn't touch. "Morning, Mom," he said, smiling like it was natural. "Morning," I replied, stepping aside. "Come in." He didn't sit, just hovered near the dresser, looking around the room as if taking stock. His eyes landed on the photo of Sam, the one in uniform, the same I'd carried on every trip since his funeral. Trevor looked quickly away. "I thought we could talk," he said. "You know, just you and me." I nodded. "That would be nice." He handed me one of the cups. I sipped. Too much sugar. He used to remember how I took it. Apparently not anymore. "I know things have been a little awkward," he began. "Claire's intense sometimes, but she means well. And Izzy's just a teenager. She's 20. He gave a short laugh. "Right. Still, that whole generation's allergic to conversation." He sat down then. Finally. Hands folded over his knee like he was about to pitch something. And he was. "So," he said, "Claire and I have been talking about the future." I waited. "And, you know, we just want to make sure everything's in order for you." I took another sip. "In order how?" "Well, finances. Your will. That kind of thing. God forbid anything ever happens, but it's smart to be proactive." There it was. I stared at him for a moment. His face was calm. Too calm. He'd practiced this. Maybe even rehearsed it with Claire. "I have everything in order," I said. "Sure, of course," he replied quickly. "We just thought, if you needed help, we could recommend someone. Claire's cousin is an estate planner." I smiled politely. "I already have one." "Oh?" Silence. He tried a different angle. "It's just, you know, after what happened to Claire's aunt, we realized how messy things can get. The house, the bank accounts, I'm not dead yet," I said, voice flat. He looked embarrassed. "I didn't mean that. But you're thinking about it." He spread his hands. "We just want to avoid complications. You know, protect your wishes." I leaned forward. "Do you know what my wishes are, Trevor?" He blinked. "Well, I assume." "You assume," I cut in. "That's the problem." He fell quiet. I softened a little. "I'm not upset," I said. "It's wise to talk about these things, but don't pretend it's for my peace of mind when it's clearly for yours." He flushed, looked away. "I've already spoken to my lawyer," I added. "I have a will, a trust. Everything's taken care of." "Oh, okay, that's good." He stood. Conversation over. "Thanks for the coffee," I said as he walked to the door. He paused, hand on the knob. "Just so you know, Claire wasn't trying to be rude at dinner last night." "She succeeded anyway." He gave me one last glance. "I hope we can spend more time together this week." "Me too," I said, and meant it. But we both knew we wouldn't. When he left, I sat in silence for a long time. Later, I checked my handbag. The folder with my documents was still there, unmoved. That night, I locked my suitcase for the first time. The fourth morning brought a quiet I hadn't planned on. I woke to a still ship, soft light filtering through the crack under my cabin door. I checked the time, 8:12 a.m. I dressed quickly and headed upstairs, assuming we'd all planned to disembark together for the day's excursion. The Olive Farm tour. Claire mentioned it on the first night. I wore the wide-brimmed sun hat I'd packed specially for this, combed my hair, even put on the rose-tinted lipstick that made my skin look less tired. The weather was perfect. Soft breeze, clear skies. A day for photographs and memories. I waited near the gangway for nearly half an hour, watched families pour down onto the pier. Matching hats, matching bags, matching laughter. My family never came. I tried their suite. Knocked 3 times, no answer. I went to the main desk, just in case. "Harper family?" I asked. The woman checked her tablet. "They disembarked earlier, about an hour ago." "Are you sure?" Yes, ma'am. The cabin scanned out at 7:05 a.m. I smiled weakly. Thank you. They'd left without me. No text, no note, no knock on my door. Just gone.